everyone. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 218, Journey of Service. Now, some people believe that service to others is its own reward, and maybe one of the highest of virtues. Most people agree that they experience a lot of joy and satisfaction when they offer service to others without expecting anything in return. But even service to others can be self-serving in nature, especially when it's motivated by thoughts and beliefs of the ego mind. Well, consider a couple of hypothetical situations. How many people have chosen the path of asceticism, taking vows of chastity and poverty because they wanted the world to see them as superior, enlightened beings? Or how many wealthy philanthropists throughout history appeared initially to be benefiting mankind, only to be exposed later as corrupt narcissists hell-bent on making themselves look good in the public eye? So a journey of service is something that is best guided by the heart and soul, not the mind. This means that true service to others must be a part of our spiritual purpose for being, which of course means that it emanates out of the deepest truth of who we really are. So for today's episode of Life Mastery TV, as you can see, I've invited back my friend Kellan Fluckiger, a coach and best-selling author, to share his perspective and ideas on this subject. As someone who has begun a powerful journey to bring a message of love and hope to 50 million souls and help them to discover and share their divine gifts, Kellan has taken on a significant mantle of leadership. Welcome, Kellan. It's great to have you back on the show again for what I think it's the third time now, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and I first and foremost want to honor you for who you are, what you're doing, and how you're adding good to the world. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, and thank you for saying that. And I love that little flaming angel or whatever it is behind you. Oh, a phoenix, I see. Okay, now I can see the head. Beautiful. Rising from the ashes. What a perfect kind of symbol, I think, especially given some of your personal experience. You want to share a little bit about your story and what happened and how you got where you are and why you are on such a determined path of service?
Well, so first of all, I've had a bunch of extraordinary things happen to me, or for me, as we really understand. And I lived a life that was very much like what you described earlier until I was 52. So I was raised in a typical two-parent home, very untypical in that there was a lot of abuse, physical abuse, punishment, sort of stuff that today would be felony child abuse. And that left me feeling depressed. And does my sound okay for you?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
I can hear you great.
All right, great. Sometimes when I restart my computer, the input goes to 100 and I didn't know, and then it's distorted. That's why I was checking. Anyway, so I left home at 17, and between then and 52, that 35 years, I lived believing that my most important mission in life was to prove to my mother that I was okay. And, because she was the one that had administered most of the discipline and she had God on her side. So I lived my own life and I created big success. I knew how to make money. So I achieved corporate success and climbed that ladder, but it was all sort of tainted with the idea that I was proving something. At the same time, I never got the kind of approval I sought because my life was not in order. So I ended up sabotaging all that a bunch of times. So you think of the biggest roller coaster you want. I created big success, and then I literally sabotaged it. I behaved in a way that ruined the marriage and ruined the job. Then I did it all over again, climbed back up the roller coaster, bigger pinnacle, more money, married again. Then I destroyed that, believing I wasn't good enough. Then I did it again. And so there were some smaller lumps in my roller coaster, but there were 3 monumental trips up and down that. And at the top of the third one was August of 2007. And so I'd lived this life of depression, self-loathing, self-sabotage, chasing the corporate dream, trying to be good and have people say how cool I was, et cetera, et cetera. I lived married to that for 35 years. At the top in 2007 of the third time, the highest time up the roller coaster, I was making enough money that my $3,000 a week cocaine habit didn't matter. And
Wow.
I was a highly functioning addict and had that kind of job. I was single again for the third time. 4 of my 10 children were living with me. They were all teenagers. 3 were grown up and married, and 3 were, it's embarrassing to say, but with one of the exes. And that's how you found me in 2007 in August. In August of 2007, I had a divine intervention. It was an invitation to change, like they always are, invitations. There's no done for you delivered by Amazon.
Exactly.
And so I had an invitation that was orchestrated by the divine. And I can tell that whole story if you like. But the outcome is that I walked away from everything that I knew. I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts and said, I'm starting my life all over again. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to do this, but I'm done with where I am right now. And I think I will tell a little of the story. Is it okay if I take a few minutes to tell that story of what
absolutely.
happened?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I came home on a Friday night in August of 2007. And I remember all these details like they were yesterday, as you'll understand. I was getting ready to go out and party for the weekend, like I did every weekend. And I might have come back Monday or Tuesday. And the kids were all grown up, meaning they were all teenagers and took care of themselves. And I was a shitty dad and thought that money took care of everything anyway. So I got ready to go out. And I had this compelling urge to turn on the television. And that was weird because I didn't watch TV. I had the biggest, coolest stuff you could have installed because that's what you buy, right? But I picked up the remote and I looked at it and it's like, ooh, I didn't know how to turn it on. So I asked one of my kids, my 16-year-old daughter, punched some buttons, threw the remote at me, dipstick. Here you go. And it landed on a program which I don't think is on anymore, but it was a reality TV show called Intervention. And that was I never heard of it, but it's a show where families stage real life interventions for busted loved ones. Well, the protagonist in the show was a high ranking executive with a cocaine problem.
Wow.
So I watched about 10 minutes of the show and I said, yeah, I'm not watching this crap. So I turned it off and I did some other stuff. And a little while later, I got ready to go out again. And I was absolutely compelled to turn the TV back on. So I did. And this time I knew how. So I turned it on and that show started over. And no, I don't have a DVR, a recording device. And no, it wasn't on the schedule. And no, it can't do that. I get it, but it did. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I freaked out and I thought, I guess I'm supposed to watch this. So I watched it. It went badly. The guy yelled at his family, swore he didn't have a problem, stomped out of the intervention. But it freaked me out. And it freaked me out enough that I went to bed instead of going out to party. And when I went to bed, I went to hell. And what I mean by that is I felt out of body. I went somewhere. And I was in a big room, it was dark, and I was a theater, kind of a stage, and I could see and hear stuff. And the scenes that played before my eyes were all out of my life, and they all focused on suffering. The suffering that I had caused, or that was inflicted on me as a kid, all the way through the suffering I had inflicted on everybody else as an addict and a liar and a bad partner and all the stuff. And the suffering was more intense than I have language to describe. But at the end, or after, I didn't know it was the end, but after a long time, a voice said, it is enough. I woke up and I was disoriented because the sun was shining in the windows and the window in my room faced west. So I got up and realized it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So I'd been somewhere for nearly 18 hours. And I got up and thought, okay, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. I've never talked to anybody really, even though I'd been in and out of rehab centers and, some counseling because I'd attempted suicide a couple of times, but I never really I didn't know anything, but I said, I know I'm done with this. So I threw away $1,000 worth of stuff I had laying around and I quit cold turkey that day. So that got me sober, but it didn't do anything at all about how I got where I was, which was the isolation, lying, internal dialogues, and addiction and everything else, self-loathing and depression. That happened. The second shoe dropped in a couple of weeks. So I knew I had to get out of everything I was doing, but I didn't know what to do. So I went back to work on Monday. In the position I had, I used to get a lot of free stuff because I made decisions that affected a lot of companies. And so people gave me free tickets to this and box seats to that and free expensive bottles of booze like I needed that. But anyway, so One of the things I got was a pair of tickets to see a Yo-Yo Ma concert. Now, in classical music, if you know classical, you know who that is, and if you don't, you don't. But in classical circles, that's I mean, it's
He's
like the
like
holy.
the pinnacle of cello players.
Yeah, there ever was in the universe. And so anyway, he can captivate a whole auditorium. And they were $1,000 tickets because they included backstage and a bunch of the stuff. So I thought, oh, it'd be a terrible waste to waste this other ticket because I got two of them and I didn't have anybody to take. And I was not interested in any kind of relationship stuff. So I asked in the groups that I managed, does anybody like classical music? And some lady in one of the groups said, well, I do. And I looked at her and I said, have I ever given you anything before? Because I gave away stuff all the time. And she said, no. I said, okay, fine. See you there. So I gave her the ticket. We met at the venue. And the concert was spectacular. And halfway through, now you got to know, I'm now 2 weeks stone cold sober. Halfway through the show, I had this feeling come over me that I recognized. And a voice said to me, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're insane. I said, I've screwed that up 3 times officially, some other awful messes in between. No. Later that night, we were backstage because they were backstage passes with the reception and everything, right? And the voice came back and said, comma, and you need to tell her tonight. So I went crazy. Yeah, I went crazy because I'm thinking, okay, I have a couple of problems with this. One, I actually don't know her. I don't know if she has a relationship. And this wasn't a date. This was just me taking somebody, or not even taking them, giving a ticket away. And on top of that, this could be harassment. She works for me, so she could call cops or HR or whatever there is, right? So there's a few problems with this. So no, not happening. But you don't win those arguments. So I did, and it went about like you would have expected. Are you insane? What are you talking about? Like what? But the good news is she wasn't in another relationship, which I didn't know, and she didn't call the cops. But she did leave and thought I was crazy. So over the next 2 weeks after that, she had her own set of experiences. And about 2 weeks after that concert, I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts. She resigned her entire career, and we walked off into the sunset together. And we're now, last December, we celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary. So the reason that's so, I mean, the story is incredible by itself. But the thing about recovery and getting on this journey of service is she was literally the angel with the soul contract who helped me learn how to be a person, learn how to tell the truth, learn how to have a friend, learn how to be a friend. I mean, she just was invincible. And I've asked her 1,000 times, what on earth prompted you to walk away from your entire career and off into the sunset with a drug addict? Because everybody knew. I mean, nobody knew, but everybody knew, right? And she said, I just knew to the core of my soul it was the right thing to do. So Beautiful. That's the start of a radical transformation in August and September of 2007 of the journey I've been on now for 15 years.
Well, thank God it wasn't a boring experience.
You know, I tell that story and people say, well, you know, if I had something like that, let me tell you something. Yeah, the only reason you get 2x4s is because you've been tone deaf for X number of years.
Exactly
and the invitations get louder and more painful. And no success was delivered by Amazon. It was blood on the floor, do the work all the way through. That was just the invitation.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a few things that you've said here that have stuck out for me. First, you talked about approval, and that is a whole topic unto itself. I mean, we live our lives, many of us, seeking approval because that's what we're taught to do from the moment we're born. And so approvalitis, that's what I call it. Approvalitis is a common disease that almost everybody has at one time or another. So we can go into that a little bit if you like. The other thing that you mentioned was the phrase that came to your mind. I think you said this is enough, or it is enough, or something like that. Is that right? Did I get it? It
was a voice and it said, it is enough.
Yeah. Well, what's amazing to me is I had exactly that same phrase in my head when I had my first major wake-up call in 1992. So I understand. I mean, I got myself in a situation where I had my hand around my sister's neck, and I was I was very upset about something. I won't go into the whole story because people have heard it. You've heard it before. But when I was up there, I had my hand around her neck, and I hear this voice in my head. First of all, I was trying to say, "Don't you tell me how to grieve," but what came out of my mouth was, "Don't you tell me how to be." And then shortly after that, I kind of thought to myself, "How did I get here?" And then I heard that voice, "It's enough. Let go. It's enough. Let go." And that let go piece was, obviously, there was a physical letting go of releasing her and not holding her against the wall anymore. But there was a spiritual and emotional letting go as well. That was the part that I didn't really understand at the time. And that took several years to really kind of get a grip on. But that starting point was the beginning of my journey, really. So I completely resonate with pretty much everything you've said. The other thing I wanted to just bring back to your attention, I heard you refer to yourself as an addict, a liar, a bad husband, a bad friend, and so forth. And I would like to just invite you back into another way of seeing that. I don't see you as an addict. I see you as a divine, spiritual, magnificent, unlimited spiritual being of light and love who is part of his human experience, who happened to have a problem with addiction. And I also believe that that problem was really all about helping you to find the truth of who you really are, along with all the other experiences. So bravo to you. Thank you for sharing that amazing story. And now I really understand the phoenix that's standing there behind you with its big spread wings. And it's kind of, I think that's speaking to your soul and talking about how you came out of hell, as you called it, and decided to come back into the world. Now, I know in a previous episode, I think it was the first episode that you were on here with me, you talked about meeting God at the door. You talked about your near-death experience. Now, I know that happened further down the road, but it was still something that brought you even closer to this idea of being in service. So why don't we talk about the service piece now? What does service mean to you in the first place? I'd like to get a kind of a sense, because I know a lot of people have a different idea of the meaning of that word. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I'll just make it really simple. It is a choice to have an attitude. I was on a podcast a couple of days ago with several people, and the topic was abundance. And, my thought is really simple about that. Abundance is a choice to recognize that there's enough of everything everywhere. And we can relate to it sometimes calmly and just sitting in quiet gratitude, or we can sometimes be furiously building something from and with that abundance. Service is a choice. It is like love. I define love as a choice to use your resources, and I use 4 words: spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, and I use the acronym SPEM. It's a choice to use your resources to lift and bless someone. And the whole argument about service altruistically or whether or not you get some benefit from it, I think is a red herring. Of course, when you make a choice to love and serve someone, without worrying about who gets the credit or the reward, you bless them. You become more of a person because you have the experience not only of making that choice, but there are things that happen in us when we choose to be that way. And so, yeah, there are charlatans everywhere, and the world's full of them. Okay. Service is our true nature. If you think, about the divine and the creator, everything about it is in service of our growth, in service of our opportunity. And I think my experience is love and service is our true nature. It is our biggest growth opportunity. It is our choice of highest development and greatest joy, is to be in service. And I mean that in the most, without worrying about who gets the credit or the money or whatever. And I understand we all need to eat. And so getting paid is great. You should do that. But it is, if you taint your service with the idea of give to get, or I'm supposed to do this, that's okay. And it's okay because that's where you are on your journey. When you get done, if you move toward your completion of your divine nature, that stops being a thing and you stop needing stuff. You called it approvalitis. I have a different name for it. It's the same thing. I call it the Witot fungus, and that's an acronym that stands for what I think others think. Okay, and it's the same thing. We have this whole dance with the universe based on what we think somebody is going to think, or not think, or does think, or would think, or might think, and all the rest of the crap. And so it's just a place, a joyful place to get to, not a coat to put on, not something you get up and go do for a few hours. It is who you become.
Right. I think there's a phrase that I remember hearing a long time ago, and you probably heard it too, I'm sure. Love is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. But when I think about that more carefully and I break it up into its phonetic components, what I get is love is forgiveness. And what that tells me is the more love I have, the more I can give, and the more I give, the more love I have. It's a beautiful, amazing. It violates the logical. What's the word I'm looking for here? Well, it doesn't matter. The scholarly approach. They have all these rules in physics, like the law of the conservation of energy and momentum, and all these other things. Well, that doesn't seem to be true in the world of love. There is an infinite supply of love. We all have access to it, and the more we share with others, the more we end up having. It's just an amazing, amazing thing. So to me, if I am in that spirit, if I can accept that as truth in my life, and the only thing that's going to stop me from accepting that as truth is the stories that I have in my head. If I accept that as truth, then I can become the giveness. And I can become the offering. I can become the sharer of love. And that to me is what real service is all about. It's not necessarily about getting anything in return. It's also not about, I don't like this idea. I have another phrase that I say, helpful people aren't. Often what happens is somebody who's trying to be helpful, they're making up their mind about what you need, and they're not even checking in with you to see what kind of support you actually want. So sometimes we can inject ourselves into someone else's lives by trying to be helpful or of service without first making sure that we have been invited into that space. So I think service not only involves this idea of giving without any desire of return, but also honoring the other person and making sure that it's welcome to begin with.
I agree with you. I have a little thought about that. Sometimes people, at least I have been this way. I don't even talk about people. Sometimes I didn't have sense enough to know when I needed help.
That's
and
true.
So sometimes people come and offer me help. And even if I allow it a little bit and resistingly a bit at first, it turns into true grace. And for me, and I say that because in our first years of marriage, I mean, like we literally got married a couple of months after that happened without even knowing each other. And the first 3 or 4 years we had to get to know each other. And there was lots of offers for help and service. And I didn't have sense enough to know, like when I started first going to see counselors and talking to somebody trying to unravel 52 years of mess. When I first started doing that, I didn't even know how to talk to him. I thought I had to go in and talk to the counselor and be in charge and tell him everything and then psychoanalyze it and tell him the problem and tell him I'd fix it and here's what I'm going to do. I didn't even know how to go in and be vulnerable and just talk about stuff. I didn't know how to tell the truth. I'd been married 3 times and I'd never even been open or been a friend. I hadn't been trusting or trustworthy very long in any of the relationships. And I had to learn to be a pathological liar as a kid. And I really appreciate the distinction you made about having those experiences, because people ask, would you change anything? And the answer is no. So all of my verbal descriptions were of my behavior, not my soul. Right. And so the Joy, and I didn't tell you this, the funniest thing is her name is Joy. Like, right? Like, you cannot make this stuff up. And, she said, it was my soul contract. I knew it. I couldn't not know it.
That's right.
And so her offering of service was sometimes, I won't say over my dead body, but over my emotional, immature objections. And it was arduous a little, and then welcome, and now life breath. And so sometimes, and this is all guided by spirit. So if a person...
And I'd like to just point something out here too, Kellan. You're speaking about the kind of service and support that you're getting from your wife, Joy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget, back in that August of 2007 or September, whenever it happened, you already accepted her offer of support when you accepted Spirit's invitation to marry her and tell her you're going to marry her tonight. You had accepted that at that point in time. So you accepted whatever else was going to come with that.
Well, I didn't know it at the time. And so there were a lot of bumps as I learned the truth of that. And so barging in and forcing yourself on someone rarely turns out well. But that isn't what happened here. We made a deal. And one of the deals we made to start with was neither one of us know how this is going to work or what the hell happened here. But what we know is this is ride or die, baby, because I'm not doing this again.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That was right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this unless it's no matter what.
Exactly right. Yeah, and I can see you're feeling some emotion about that. Beautiful.
Oh, that's just, it is. I've written songs and albums and everything, and it is all there is. Like that's it.
That's beautiful. So I really appreciate your sharing and your being vulnerable about this and being honest. And this whole thing that happened between Joy and yourself, as you say, I believe it was completely divine inspiration. It was divine intervention. It was divinity showing up between the two of you and bringing you together so that you could both express the best parts of who you really are. And you might not, I don't know what Joy's experience has been in life, but your experience has been such that it brought you to that place where you really wanted to know the truth of who you are. And if you hadn't wanted that, none of this would have happened.
There's no question about that. There's phrases like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, or the other way around, teacher appears when the student's ready. I had come to a place where I did want to know. I didn't know. I wouldn't have even articulated it such. And that's the nature of divine intervention. Like, it's an invitation. I could just as easily have woken up from the 18 hours out of body and use the $1,000 worth of drugs that I had to get high and call it weird. I could have done a lot of things, but the invitations that we get, that's actually no different than nudges and little thoughts and feelings and pushes you or I get during the day. That one was loud. And what it proves to me is that regardless of where you've been or what has happened, it's never too late to change direction and say yes to the very next invitation.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah. So this whole idea of having journeys to go through life, and I mean, so many of us go through experiences and we describe them as the hero's journey. Everything's going along real good, and then all of a sudden you drop down into the pit of despair, and while you're down there, maybe you meet a guru or something, or somebody tells you something that helps you find your way out of the pit again. And then once you get out the other side, you're a completely new person, and now you want to share what you've learned with the rest of the world. That's kind of the way the hero's journey works. And it's something that I think you've written about this yourself in your book, The Story Arc. That's exactly what Hollywood does. It takes that hero's journey idea and applies it to pretty much every story that you see out of Hollywood. And why? Well, because people like it. We relate to it. We tend to, we vibrate on that same level. But what I think is even more amazing, and I get this from your story, and I know I get it from my own as well. I think all of us, when we are spiritual beings, before we even come into this physical world, we have some kind of plan that we put together out there. And, I think in my case, based on what I've gone through, my plan really was to forget the truth of who I really am, put myself in that place of severe pain so that I can remember who I really am. That's been my journey. And your journey sounds like it's similar in some ways, but not exactly the same. But when we were in that spiritual realm, we didn't say, yeah, I think I'm gonna beat up my sister, I'm gonna murder somebody, I'm gonna commit this, I'm gonna have child abuse. We don't think of those details. We only think of the overall experience that we want, and we trust the universe to provide us the necessary physical experiences to make that come to pass. I think it's just fascinating and amazing to me. And I think, what was it, Carolyn Miss or somebody like that talked about these soul contracts. And I think that's kind of what's going on here. So,
well, there's a thought that I have about that. And, when we say, well, we were spiritual beings and our deal was to forget who we were and then remember, I don't disagree with that. I think there's a richness and texture about that, because it is the process. Like, this life was designed to be hard, full of struggles, learning, failures, growth, and choices. Okay. And so it isn't only, I came to forget who I was and learn again. Well, why didn't you just stay where you were? Well, the process of learning again and having the texture and richness, like, of having, the stuff that you experienced, or that I, or that one of the listeners has, the process of doing that very thing, the consequences of forgetting, the real live, tentacles of all that, and then the process of refinement and growth that comes from remembering and declaring once again, this is who I am, even though X, Y, Z, and all those even those didn't exist the first time you thought you knew who you were. So I knew who I was as a spiritual being, and I'm going to have this physical experience, and this experience has given us an opportunity to both demonstrate to ourselves, to discover, and to have all these even those. That's who I am, and I show it, and I be it, though all this other crap has happened.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so you already mentioned this. Now, you said that we all get these invitations, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just a question of making a choice to say yes to the
Mm-hmm.
invitation. And so I guess the first question I'd like to know is, how can people, first of all, recognize the invitation for what it really is, rather than just, a little bump in the road, let's say, of life?
I would, well, I'm going to say something bold and perhaps offensive to some. I would say, when you get that pit in your stomach and that little flutter, you darn well know when you've had that thought. And that first thought is the truth. And then all the things you think about afterwards, the reasons why maybe not this and that and the other, are mostly horseshit that you have added to the pile so you can talk yourself out of the thing that you felt inspired to do. And does it love? Does it lift? Does it bless? Does it scare the shit out of you just a little bit? Good. Then maybe the question is not, oh, I can't do that. Maybe the question is, how would I go about that? What would be the first step? Because when I demand an explanation from heck to breakfast all the way through, I never get it. So it's the first step. When I walked away from everything, I didn't have any idea at all what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to write 18 books and create a coaching practice all over the world. I had no idea. None. Zero. I was done with this. I have changed my direction. I was blessed with someone who was going to help me learn how to be a person, which I destroyed my whole life. Now we're going to go out on this road and figure it out. And trust back again over and over, despite the bumps and all the stuff that happens, because we've had a ton of it, to go back to that first commitment. We know, we knew, and we know we knew.
So there's one thing you just said here that I love the whole thing, by the way. I think it's all great. But I just wanted to say, trust. Oh, you did this. Trust over and over and over again. And that's a really, really important thing. Really important, I think. Because if you don't do that, if I don't do that, then my ego mind comes in and it starts to take control. I have to keep coming back. I have to return back to that pit of my stomach, that truth that is inside. I have to keep coming back to that over and over and over again. And I have to keep opening myself up to listen to what that truth is trying to tell me. Because my ego mind is going to, it doesn't matter how much work I do. It doesn't matter how many seminars I go to. It doesn't matter how many people I befriend and become, like with people like you. It doesn't matter. Yes, I'm going to get great input and feedback from those people, but ultimately the real truth has to come from here. And that's true for all of us. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to say. And you talk about, this idea that when you get all these stories and all the crap that comes into your mind and giving you all the reasons not to do something, every single one of those is based in fear. Every single one of those ideas is based in fear, and all of that comes from the ego mind. So when you're feeling fear, it's your ego mind resisting something that your soul, your heart is trying to tell you. And when that happens, you're on the right path.
You do, and thank you for that. When you said, how does a person know? And that's why I said the bold declaration. Of course you know. Stop playing. Stop pretending you don't.
Exactly.
Your soul has that connection. And funny thing, I say it this way. At the time when these things happened to me to start with, I say this, well, if there was ever anybody who was a candidate to be left at the bottom of the canyon, I was the poster child. The life behind me was a battlefield. And yet, even in that moment, the divine offered an invitation, loud and clear, but I still had to say yes and get up. And I still had to climb out of the canyon. There wasn't a levitation exercise that put me up on the side. It was one rock at a time. And the difference is I had said yes, and I had pounded my fist, metaphorically and sometimes actually. I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. And through the hard stuff and everything else. And so your own choice right now to be your best self, to trust your intuition. Like people talk about meditation, and there's a million different kinds, and I distill it down to three things. Be still enough, or slow down enough to be where you are and when you are. Be still enough to notice what is there and trust that what comes to you is truth. And that repetition.
And I think you shared that with me on a previous show, and I believe I captured it and shared it on your page. I can't remember. Can you just say that one more time? Because I think it's just a really powerful statement.
Well, the first 5 books I wrote were about meditation, and they're a little series, and I'm just releasing second editions right now, and I'm going to put them in a little set. And I've read, I can't even tell you how many books and programs, but it all comes down to 3 simple principles. Slow down enough to be where you are. You can't do it wrong. Yes, you're going to fight with the monkey mind and the ego mind and the noise and everything, but just slow down enough to be where you are and when you are, because a lot of times we're forward and, in the future and the past, but just slow down enough to be where you are. Then be still enough to notice what is there. And when you do slow down, what you start noticing is that the thoughts have a different color. The ego mind thoughts feel one way, and I liken that to color. They're colored one way, and they have a certain energy about them. Divine intuition feels different. It has a different color, if you will, or frequency or vibration or essence. Right. And so be still enough to notice what is there. So slow down enough to be where you are. Be still enough to notice what is there, and trust what comes to you is truth.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So the journey of service.
A little bit off the topic
so I'm going to jump right into it. So service was, I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I decided to be a coach and get in the people encouragement business. And I've messed with that a whole bunch of times. And fundamentally, Here's how I run my business. My business motto's on the wall. It says, I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. And right before this call, I had a phone call with a producer in Los Angeles who was an ABC News anchor and had former Miss Texas and done a bunch of stuff. She's this summer sending a crew up here to interview me to put on a new show she's creating called Miracles by Megan. I didn't ask for it. I didn't seek it. It is an outcome of a choice that I have made to live 100% in service. I don't chase money. I don't need anything. I trust that things that I need will come and show up. And so that might sound like a bunch of woo-woo hype, but the truth is it has been a process to get there. So every day I get up, I do one thing. I am committed this day with every breath, first to last, including talking on this show, talking to that lady, a podcast that was on earlier this week, my own podcast, blah, 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 to reaching 50 million people to help them discover and choose to serve with their gifts. That's it. And I've quit worrying about anything else, and everything else just shows up.
Well, if it's that simple, then we should all do it.
I didn't say it was easy. I said simple is the key word. So you can make it simple. It is not easy because the ego mind wants to make up reasons why you're full of crap. It wants to create lack scenarios. It wants to tell you you're going to starve to death. It wants to create all kinds of reasons why you shouldn't be the light, divine, capable, powerful being that you are that's on this journey of forgetting, having difficult and refining experiences as you remember. You and me and everybody else is on that journey. So listen to the guideposts. Find the feelings that edify, that lift and bless, and lean into those instead of the doubts and the fears, which there are plenty of.
Right. That's beautiful. And so can you say again, you've got your business plan on the wall, and I believe you say it's got 3 pillars.
I never look for clients.
I never look for clients.
And I stop there so that sinks in when I tell people that. I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. And the reason it's in that order is because I don't need your permission to love you.
Yeah.
So that's the first layer. Unconditional, I just love you because you are human, you're on your own journey. Wherever you are, it's okay. So I look for people to love, opportunities to serve. And like you pointed out, I need a little bit of information about you so that I know what I might do that would actually serve you. So that requires some connection and some, interaction. And then the last layers, opportunities to serve and problems to solve. So if we share space and thoughts and spirit enough that I can really help you with a problem, you've shared something with me and we talk about it and we work on it and it becomes clear to you and me that there's a connection and a real opportunity there, then people ask me if they can work together. And I never have to sell anything. But it doesn't happen until you love, opportunities to serve and problems to solve, and we dig in and do this thing. And then it's like, ooh, this is cool. Can we do this some more? It's like samples at Costco. Right. You don't have to think about it. You eat one and you know if you like it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, there's another issue here that I think is really, really important. And one of the aspects of service is living an authentic life, being an authentic person. And you and I have talked about this before, and I know it's an important concept in your own mind. But for the purpose of people listening, what do we mean when we talk about living an authentic life, being an authentic person?
So I was scared to death when I first started writing books. One of the books I wrote was Tightrope of Depression, My Journey from Darkness, Despair, and Death to Light, Love, and Life. And it told all the stuff that had gone on that I'd kept hidden for decades. Not as a tell-all, not as a blame anything, but just as an expression of experience and my own struggles and journey. And I waited a year after I wrote it to publish it because I was so scared. And before that, I was afraid. They won't like me if they knew. Oh, if they only knew XYZ about me, whatever I had done or whoever I was or wasn't being. The disconnect between the public face and the private behavior. Authenticity is eliminating that disconnect. And that doesn't mean you have to tell everybody everything you're doing. There's a level of appropriate disclosure, but there's nothing going on that contradicts who you pretend to be. So that's what I mean. My beliefs, my expression to you, David, and to everybody I talk to is what I truly believe, and the standard to which I hold myself every single breath. And to do that, I've created a personal declaration. I have a long morning ritual every day, not because I have to, but because it's a joyful creation of who I have said I am. And so authenticity means if you saw Joy and I talking or me behaving in the grocery store or anywhere, it would be like, same dude. So there's no camouflage, no duplicity, no guile, no secret stuff going on. And so that's what I mean by authenticity, transparent like glass all the way through.
Well, I like what you said about the morning ritual thing. It's basically a recommitment to who you really choose to be. And I think it's important, not just because it's a fancy thing and you might even, it might become rote to the point where you don't really maybe feel the words or the actions or whatever that you're doing. But as long as you can stay connected to that ritual and keep repeating it over and over and over again, that has an impact on your ego mind. And all of us, really, the real purpose, I think, of spiritual growth has to do with transcending the ego mind. Mm-hmm. And if you can, it's not an easy thing to do. It's a journey. It's a process.
Yep.
And every living human being on the planet has an ego mind, no matter how much work he or she has done to transcend it. So we all have to keep doing that work. We can stop if we want to and revert back to letting the ego mind run the show if we want.
But we all know where that goes.
Well, yeah, we theoretically.
So here's what I say about morning rituals. You can write documents till the cows come home. You can recite affirmations in mirrors until the cows come home. And you can do all that. And here's what I say to clients, and I say it just in this voice. If on any day you find that your studies, your spiritual connection, your meditation, your affirmations, your declarations, if whatever it is that you're doing doesn't light the walls on fire, doesn't make you weep, then write it again, because you have not succeeded at creating and the recommitment that David just talked about. Mm-hmm. Recommitment is a recommitment. So do it again. Change the words. Figure out what you need to do so that commitment harks back to the first time you bled those words on the page.
Well, it's a good thing you don't get excited about stuff there, Kellan.
Well, you know what? I figure if I'm going to tell anybody anything, I'm going to tell them the truth.
Exactly.
It's not easy. It's sometimes not fun. But I can tell you the truth, you, David, because you're the wonderful, gracious host, and each person listening. I mean that. Mm-hmm. And so I have 100 ways that I do my morning ritual, but the outcome is always the same. The outcome is always silence. It is profound truth. It is connection. It is enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it. It is that recommitment. And it is that thing that lets me stay fired up every single day about the 50 million. Because it's like an athlete. You don't warm up after the game. So if I don't warm up and recommit in the morning, I'm useless.
Yeah, that's I like that. You don't warm up after the game. That's good. You got all these little bumper sticker statements that you add. Oh boy, you got a bit of a chess thing going on there too, do you?
Well, from dying 5 years ago, it's destroyed my lungs, and that may never heal.
Right. Yeah, I know the problem. I've got my own lung issues. Um, I think that what's really going on here, we have an amazing life, you and I. And I don't know about you, but I'm extremely grateful for it. One of the things that I wanted to say was, you talked earlier on about how you got this urge to turn on the TV, as an example, or you got this really strong message download that came to you from your soul, not from your mind. I assume you still get those kinds of messages. You still get that kind of download. You get different kinds of ideas that come to you through the power of your connection to what I call omnitude, what other people may call spirit or universe or God or whatever. Talk a little bit about that and how that informs you as you continue on your journey of service.
So everybody learns to develop skills. You learn to be a better piano player or a better dad or a better mom or a better gardener or a better engineer or whatever. You learn, and you learn it by learning and practice. If you choose to start listening to the nudges, you can develop the skill and ability to have that connection all the time. So I live, this is going to make someone have a cow too, but I live a spirit guided life. I live intentionally, starting with the morning ritual and connection and all that dance, so that I feel like I'm guided all the time. It's not once in a while, okay, I need to go get some direction here. What do I need to do? Just stay open, stay listening. And this is where what you said a little while ago about fear is so important, because the voice of fear is maybe I'll make a mistake, maybe I'll screw up, maybe I'm making this all up and I'm not guided about anything anywhere at all and it's all a bunch of crap. All of those voices come in all the time. But I promise you, the more you listen, the more you recognize that special color. And I called it a color earlier, but the vibration of truth, because truth carries its own power. Like truth is truth and you know it, you feel it. And so I feel it all the time, every day. I stop talking when I don't. Until
It's
I
beautiful. I've been doing meditating for a long time, and I have a variety of different techniques, as you do. One of my favorite is just to sit quietly and just look at a candle. It's one that I really like. Lately, I'd say since actually, I've had this situation happen since probably 2005, 2006, where I would hear this voice in my head saying things that seemed like really amazingly true and powerful. And I didn't really pay close attention to this at first. I thought it was just me making stuff up, as you said. And but it kind of took a shift of energy. Now, these weren't happening all the time, by the way. It would just be occasionally. As time has passed, I found them happening more often, especially when I'm meditating. And finally, in last year, starting around, I think it was September or October, I started keeping a little recorder beside me when I'm meditating. And when these thoughts come to me, these ideas come to me, I just try to, it sounds like a voice. So you talk about a color. I see it as a kind of a sound, but it's a very, very deep voice that just sounds very authoritative. It doesn't feel like my ego mind at all, as you mentioned before. And it starts talking, and I try to capture what I'm hearing by recording it on my recording device. Now, obviously, it's got to go through my own little filter system, and maybe the words I'm saying on the recording are not exactly what I heard, but I listen to them later, and sometimes there's jumble and words I don't really understand, but the message is still coming through. So I'm now trying to transform those into a series of messages that I want to share with people, because the wisdom that comes through is so amazing. It's not just for me. I know that. I know that other people can benefit from this. So one of the things that we all have different ways of serving, and one of the ways I do it is by providing some of what I know through the different programs that I offer. And I know you do the same thing. And I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing.
So I want to just so agree with you so loud, I want to scream. Why would we imagine that the divine, the universe, God, I call it God, but why would we imagine the universe is reluctant or reticent? Oh, I don't know. I'll drop you a little pearl here, David. Ding! There you go. That ought to do you for a week. No, you know what I imagine? I imagine that the pressure, if you think of water pressure, the pressure from the other side is constant. The willingness to give away the secrets of the universe is always.
I
And the
agree.
only thing that prevents you from having it every single moment of breath is your radio station's not turned on. You've got
That's right.
interference. You've got blockage. You've got resistance. You've got ego mind. You've got fear. If you want more revelation, if you want more intuition, inspiration, your focus is on cleaning up the radio. It's on getting rid of the distractions. It's on eliminating the fear, because the pressure from the divine to give you the experiences, love, growth, opportunities, service you want is constant and unchanging. That's
Yeah,
what I know.
that's beautiful. Oh, wow. We've covered so much ground here, Kellan. It's been absolutely amazing as always. I just love spending time talking to you. I would like, I know that you are doing this journey to, or I'm sorry, what's it called? The journey
The
to 50
road to
million.
50 million.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor and just copy the link or whatever into the chat there so people can reach that and check
So
it
it's a
out?
live stream. Yeah, it's a live stream I do every day. The best way, you can either find it on YouTube or Facebook. So my Facebook page, it's just a live stream I do every day called The Road to 50 Million. And I reflect on I've been doing it for 125 days in a row. My year starts October 14th. And the reason is, now you'll all understand, that's Joy's birthday. And so the birthday of the angel that saved my soul, that's the beginning of my year. Why? Because I said so. So my Facebook page is the best way to find that, and I can put that.
Just copy the link direct. That way, people can, they can actually click on the link when they look at this.
I am. I'm copying it right now, so I can put it in El Chatola, which is where.
Should be on the lower right side of your screen. Left side. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see it. I think. Message public. Control paste. Bingo.
There you go.
So every day, in fact, right after this, in an hour, I'm going to do the second time I've ever had someone with me on it. So we're going to record it and then broadcast it live. I did that a few days ago and it was really good. So this fellow's just somebody that I know, and occasionally I'm going to do that. Most of them are solo. In fact, all of them but one, and this will be the second one, and it'll be out later this afternoon. They're usually 15 to 20 minutes long, and they're all called Road to 50 Million, but they talk about different things. So anxiety, gratitude, one was named Who Made That Rule, and one was named, just all kinds of those kinds of bumper sticker things that are fun.
Right.
And yes, I have a million of them.
Yeah. Well, it's been an amazing journey with you today, Kellan. It's been my honor to have you here. Just a real pleasure to share space with you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with folks before I close it out?
Yeah, two things. One, David McLeod, I love you. You don't have to give me permission. You are doing good. You are adding good to the world. And for everything that you do and breathe, I love you. The second thing I want to leave you all with is your listeners. You can listen to this episode as another cool thing and have a couple of ahas, or you can make a real choice to say, what would it take? Who do I need to be to increase the level of spirit guiding in my life? Who do I need to be to say yes to my very next invitation? Who do I need to be to stop making excuses and letting ego, mind, and fear and all the rest get in the road? Who do I need to be to do that? And if you made a 1 or 2% change just today, and every day and between now and the next time David broadcasts an episode, and you kept making 1 or 2% changes, just 1% in a day, to trust the voice and do that, by fall, you'd be a completely different person. I promise you. And so don't let this be just a thing. Let this be the moment you say today.
Yeah, let this be the moment you say yes.
Yeah, yes, today. But today be the moment you say yes.
That's right. That's beautiful. Well, there's something magical that happens within us when we give generously in service to other people, especially when they are less fortunate than we are. When we live authentically from a place of unconditional love, then we are able to bring compassion into the world effortlessly. And we expand ourselves in the process. So give yourself permission to live authentically and share your gifts with the world. Thank you all for watching today's program. Remember, you can catch the recordings of this and all other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And friends, I want to invite you to remember to practice, along with all the other amazing things you've learned today, practice the Life Mastery mantra every day. For me, it goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So thank you again. Until we meet next time on this program, my name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.